Hey guys, it's BKC here to narrate this monumental tiebreaker battle from the SPL Finals between McMeghan and baddummy. McMeghan's team is down 0-1 at this point, so if he loses, that's the tournament, and baddummy's team, the Tigers, wins against McMeghan's, the classiest. So McMeghan is fighting to just stay alive here, but even beyond that, he is fighting for personal pride, which is the most important motivating factor for any serious Pokemon player. So, I'll give some background. If you know me from my own channel, then you'll know I tend to go on for a while, and I love spending half an hour at Team Preview, or on the first turn in Generations Without It. I'll try to stick more to the house style here for the Smogon channel, but if I take some time explaining something, I am doing so not because I want to drag your day out and waste your time, but because if you just want to see the game, you can watch the replay. And I think the fun from these analysis videos is really diving into every notable detail and really building the, extracting the greater picture out of that for more understanding and depth to our wonderful game and the setting in which it is played. So, last year, in 2024, baddummy beat McMeghan in SPL. So then, when they met in week 1 of this SPL, McMeghan was already kind of jonesing for revenge. And that battle, I also narrated for the Smogon channel. It was week 1, I believe. Yes, it was. And baddummy won that as well. He had a Milotic in against a team that really struggled against Milotic. It was a fine team from McMeghan, but it was kind of more experimental. You know, he's packing Cloyster Spike's offense with Regice and then finishing up with a Rain Dance Kingdra. So not your average special offense by far. It has some really good ideas, but it just happened to run into a good team wielded by a good player. So in situations like that, when you have players of this caliber, McMeghan being, you know, one of the very best players ever, you know, if not the best, and certainly has an argument for the best advanced player ever, while baddummy is a Callus Invitational winner, which is one of the most staggering achievements anyone can attain, regardless of format. It's not just an impressive advanced achievement, it's an impressive achievement in, you know, whatever tier you care to name. So when you've got players of this caliber, you know, then those kinds of setbacks are really difficult to overcome, because if you're playing someone who is less knowledgeable, then yeah, you'll be able to claw your way back, but when the other player knows that's what you're trying to do, it becomes much more difficult. So they played again in the finals, and you could tell McMeghan really wanted that win, and baddummy got one over on him again. And at this point, it stopped being, oh, baddummy surprised everyone by getting the win, and it became more, oh, wow, McMeghan has this guy's baddummy has this guy's number. So when McMeghan's team, the classiest, picked advance for the tiebreak, because each team selects one tier for the tiebreak, and then the third tier is standard OU, current gen OU, I should say. Then people were going, wait, why did they pick McMeghan in advance? They're picking him into a guy who's beaten him twice this season. He beat him last year, too. And it's an understandable sentiment, and then you think about it a little more, and you realize this is McMeghan in advance. If you cannot depend on him to win when it matters, you can't depend on anyone. And I think that was what was being overlooked, especially because there's a lot of pressure on baddummy, not just because it's SPL Finals Tiebreak, which is a format in which McMeghan is very comfortable, and this was baddummy's first, and under such conditions. And I don't care how much of a veteran you are, it does not get easy playing that kind of game. So your first time against McMeghan, who's been here a million times, oh, that's rough. But it wasn't just that, but there's also the pressure of, well, you know, no way he's going to beat McMeghan 3 times in one season. I know we're talking best of 1 Pokemon here, but it's still a tall feat. So there were some people who were favoring McMeghan just because it's McMeghan, but I was personally very surprised by the number of people that had baddummy as the clear victor going in. So much so that they were ridiculing the classiest choice to even go with McMeghan in advance. And it was at that point where I realized we gotta delete the team tournament spreadsheet because it seems like the widest level of discourse has completely devolved into a complete lack of understanding for the game of Pokemon itself. Especially because when you look at the games they played in Week 1 and the finals, it was hardly a one-sided show of dominance. baddummy played extremely well and brought some really good teams, to be clear. But McMeghan was hardly, slouching and getting the floor, having the floor wiped with him. So, yeah. It was a very, very close game in the finals in particular, where the matchup was more even. It came, down to a couple crucial turns. So, I think that's an important lesson to keep in mind. That, don't just look at the record. And I mentioned that specifically because that was the narrative going into this battle. It wasn't just, SPL Finals tiebreak, baddummy is 2-0 into McMeghan. It's like people were predicting against McMeghan and acting like it was a certainty. Like, what are these people doing, bringing McMeghan into advance like this? Which sounds hilarious, but it was a sentiment being thrown around by a lot of people with zero irony. So, we're going to get into the battle now, and we have baddummy's Swampert lead against McMeghan's Tyranitar lead. So, Swampert is not a traditional lead in advance. It is used when you are being cautious, because with Protect, you guard against something errant, like a Choice Band Metagross lead blowing up on the first turn. baddummy actually brought Choice Band Metagross in the finals against McMeghan. It is a very disruptive force, and it could potentially have a more balanced, slow-paced team's plan completely waylaid in the opening turns. Then the offensive team just steps on the gas and never lets up, and the balanced team, is so thrown off by the loss of a crucial Pokemon early on that they're just toast. So, when you run something like a Protect Swampert lead, you are being very careful of that kind of thing. Protect Swampert also is good into other random things, just because it's going to reveal, you have a bulky team, as opposed to McMeghan's Tyranitar lead, which doesn't really say anything about his team. But it does say, I have a bulky team, but it's also not going to be so disadvantaged against everything that you are on the back foot. So in such a pressure cooker situation, you want to avoid that kind of major back foot turn 1, if you can help it. And, even if you face something like a Salamence, it might have HP Grass, or even like a T-Tar, it might have HP Grass, but I'll find that out early. I can take an HP Grass, and I'll Protect, and I'll play around it. So, but it's not, even if McMeghan does have HP Grass, he might not want to go for it in this one-on-one situation, because, it might just get protected on afterwards. He'll take a big Surf, and he might not be able to make that damage stick, depending on his team. So he might save the T-Tar for later. You know what he could do? He could say, I'm going to switch this out, I'm going to act like I don't have HP Grass, I'm going to get this thing in later, I'm going to HP Grass on the switch, and I'm going to destroy the Swampert without taking any damage myself. So, it does indeed switch, and Milotic comes in, and Surf goes off, does very little damage, and as soon as this Milotic comes in, almost every advanced player watching said, I know what McMeghan is using. It is a team that has gained a lot of notoriety over the last couple of years. It is referred to as, I'm not making this up, the Virgin team, which I don't know how it got that name. Pokemon players calling each other virgins is a strange phenomenon. And it's getting thrown, it's a stall team with the label, which, okay, I guess. An offensive team with Protect, that's fine, but anyway. That aside, as soon as the Milotic comes in, everyone knows Skarmory, Blissey, Claydol, Dugtrio. That's what's in the back. And this is also indicative of a phenomenon where no matter how creative the player is, when it's the SPL playoffs, when it's the finals tiebreak, at some point the Skarmory is going to come out. Skarmory is the most consistent. And one of the reasons Skarmory is the most consistent is that you can know it's coming, and that doesn't necessarily help you, because the options for dealing with Skarmory reliably are so limited. And the only ways to truly be safe into Skarmory, like Magneton plus Spinner kind of stuff, that tends to leave you very open against the rest of the metagame. It is very difficult to have a truly Skarmory-proof team without also being completely destroyed by the rest of the meta. So, or leaving yourself at risk of being destroyed by the rest of the meta. So, This is such a reliable team for McMeghan, reliable team style. It's like, I don't care if you know that I'm using it, you're not going to stop it. So that's also a mark of caution on McMeghan's side, not just the the safe pick, or sorry, not just the protect Swamper from Bad Dummy. I'm being cautious here. McMeghan's also being cautious and aggressive at the same time. That's the best way to do it. You don't want to be so cautious that you turn into being passive. But if you can be cautious and have a level of aggression to it, that's ideal. And that's exactly what we see from McMeghan pivoting into the pivoting into the Skarmory here, as he knows that Bad Dummy is going to switch to something that can take on Skarmory, like Celebi is very possible. And generally, if you have a defensive Pokemon, Skarmory probably sets up on it. So if you can lure in a defensive Pokemon, Skarmory makes a great double switch. You see this with something like T-Tar or Arrow drawing in Rock Resist. Skarmory spikes all over them. Or Zapdos drawing in Special Walls. Skarmory spikes all over them. So Skarmory comes in on Blissey here. And in most cases, you're going to see a free spike. But what is really fascinating here is that McMeghan switches the Skarmory out. Now, he goes to Blissey. He's playing it really safe. So you could say, oh, well, was he scouting for Magneton? And the answer is not really, because Swampert and Blissey plus Magneton, it's yes, it exists technically, but it's not something you're going to be expecting at all. Now, you could say, oh, we could be cautious about Mag, but and he's just playing super safe, but what this really is suggestive of is that the Skarmory does not want to take the potential Thunder Wave or Flamethrower or Thunderbolt, and that is because, well, number one, the Skarmory could not have a lot of special defense. That's possible. It's not something that's going to be coming into a lot of people's minds at the time, but because those kinds of sets are very rare, but it is possible. So the real thing that you're thinking, though, is McMeghan knows Bad Dummy is playing it safe with a balanced team. He's playing it so safe, he's leading with Protect Swampert. That's the ultimate sign of caution. Now, this kind of balanced team is going to get into games with lots of longevity, where longevity is key. And these kinds of teams are going to have a Rapid Spinner. So what he wants to do is if you're going to be going up against Rapid Spinner with Skarmory, you need your Skarmory in good condition, obviously. So what he feels like, even if that Skarmory is bulky, is like, wouldn't it kind of be a waste if I took a Flamethrower or a T-Bolt, or the more long-lasting and potentially crippling in the long term of the options Blissey could have to threaten Skarmory, Thunder Wave. Wouldn't it be a shame if I got it just for one layer that's going to be spun away again anyway? Why don't I take it slow? I'm not in a rush. This is a balanced team with full of defensive Pokemon. Skarmory's going to get a million opportunities. And this way, I can potentially avoid something that's going to bite me in the long run. Like getting T-Waved, and then I face a Spinner, and oh, now I'm slower, now I'm getting full parried on crucial turns, I can't protect safely, things like that. So, with that in mind, McMeghan displays incredible foresight in not rushing, not rushing into having one layer of spike because it's a Blissey. Skarm spikes in front of Blissey, right? This is really, really. I can't stress enough how incredible a display this seems. I mean, yeah, he switched Skarm out of a Blissey. Does that seem so amazing? It really is. This is the kind of detail that we are talking about here. And as he switches to the Blissey, then Bad Dummy reveals a Starmie. So, McMeghan, knowing that Bad Dummy is running a balanced team that is going to have to go the distance against spikes, means that there's a high likelihood of a spinner. And so, again, caution is the name of the game here for both sides. In the Protect Swampert lead from Bad Dummy, in conjunction with the balanced team that he is known for being most comfortable with. And of course, the team from McMeghan that was so predictable that, as soon as you saw the second Pokemon, you knew it was coming. So they're both being very cautious in that way. And that extends to the Skarmory, because he's saying, look, I'm facing a Spinner. Most likely, I don't want Skarmory to be incapacitated so early in the game in what is likely going to be a longer battle. So I'm going to see, does this Blissey have Thunderbolt or Flamethrower? I'm, no reason to risk it this early on. I can afford, because again, Skarmory gets a million opportunities against defensive stuff, and there's a lot of defensive stuff on Bad Dummy's team. So no reason to risk the Skarmory. I'm just going to go to Blissey, and if that Blissey doesn't have T-Wave, Thunderbolt, or Flamethrower, then, everything's fine. So, he does go to Blissey, and Bad Dummy does reveal his spinner, Starmie. Now, Starmie is a fine spinner, but it does have a proclivity for getting taken advantage of if over-relied on, i.e. if its team doesn't exert enough pressure, and or if it's relied on for too much too early. So, getting it on the field by turn 3, this is kind of suggesting, or this is opening yourself up to trouble. Especially when Starmie is vulnerable to getting trapped. Pursuit T-Tar is 1. It's not the easiest thing in the world for it to trap. Because remember, this is Gen 3, so Crunch is a special move, and there's no special defense boost for T-Tar for being a rock type under sand. But there's also a Doug Trio. And Starmie, you think, oh, well, it's not weak to Earthquake. Yeah, but it takes a lot, even the bulky ones. So, Starmie runs away from the Blissey. No reason to risk getting, Thunderbolted. And McMeghan makes a beautiful move. It's like, all right, well, I know that's the response, so it's not staying in against Blissey here. Obviously, no reason to get T-bolted for nothing, because it could be a Calm Mind Bliss, or even just a utility Bliss with Thunderbolt. It's a good general Pokemon for things like Skarmory, and it's a great Gyarados counter. And so he makes an aggressive double back to Skarm, and in comes Pert. Now, Starmie once again, and there goes the Spike. And here is exactly what the issue with Starmie is, that it is very responsive, reactive. It's fine to be reactive if you are exerting pressure on the opponent in other ways. Like, for example, if Bad Dummy has spikes up, McMeghan is being pressured as well. So it's like, oh, I got to deal with the Starmie spinning away my spikes. And and I'm being pressured from other areas. Like, I'm being softened up by the spikes is the most common form of pressure along something like a bulky Starmie. But it could also be like, I'm being softened up by that Choice Band Tyranitar that's coming in and focus punching me, and I'm trying to make up lost ground by getting some spikes, but now the Starmie's spinning them away. So then I have to fall back on my Blissey, and then the T-Tar comes back and it's focus punching me. So you see how the Starmie needs some more help. It cannot just sit on a team by itself. No spinner can, really, not against the power of Skarmory. So it is, and the thing is that it's also obligated to go for the spin right away, because as soon as you don't spin, then you just have a bad bulky water type. So with this pressure to spin, T-Tar is coming in, so it is absolutely a Pursuit variant, and the Pursuit versus Crunch games begin. And for Bad Dummy to be dealing with this on the 6th turn is on the 7th turn technically, but on the 7th, in the opening turns of the game is really bad. This is telling us McMeghan is very much in control. So Starmie stays in, goes for the Surf, doesn't want to just get trapped on the switch. Now, to be clear, it is incredibly difficult to click Pursuit with Pursuit T-Tar against Starmie when it threatens you so much with Stab Surf. It's not like something like a Pursuit Gengar, which is Pursuit Tar's most common target, in which you are able to click Pursuit fairly freely because Gengar generally doesn't threaten you. There are instances, but by and large, you can Pursuit it and guarantee it doesn't want to switch out. With Starmie, you're actually under pressure from the Surf, so it's not nearly as easy to click Pursuit. Also, you do less damage, I think. So the thing is that Starmie should invest in a little special attack so it KOs Pursuit T-Tar, but it looks like McMeghan's got some bulk there because he crunches, and Starmie, we can't be sure about the spreads, but the Starmie does survive Crunch plus Sand, which is an important benchmark for defensive Starmie. But of course, the Surf is also a roll, so it's tough. Do you risk the T-Tar? I mean, this doesn't necessarily have to end badly for McMeghan, because if your whole game plan is spikes and you're facing a defensive Starmie and you sacrifice the T-Tar to take the Starmie down, because you then finish it up with Doug Trio, that's good. Then you're going to spike. A team with defensive Starmie does not like dealing with spikes. That is why the defensive Starmie is there. So you take the Starmie out, you're going to spike all over them, you will be fine. So it doesn't have to, end badly just because the T-Tar goes down. But if you could preserve the T-tar, that'd be amazing, obviously. And here's where McMeghan reveals an amazing tech. And talk about, a protect lead going with the theme of being cautious. Protect T-tar is incredibly good, but it's incredibly rarely seen. I personally can't recall a major tournament game, at least in recent times, but even ever, where it was used. It was more of like a theoretical, oh yeah, Protect T-tar is really good. But McMeghan here busted it out on the biggest stage, and that deserves props. It's a great, great set. Again, choice band Metagross lead. What do you go to? Do you risk your Scarm getting blown up? Do you risk something worse getting blown up? Do you risk, T-tar just getting Meteor mashed? With Protect, you don't have to worry, The ideal is obviously Metagross blows up as your T-tar protects. Yeah, so it's great there. It has a lot of other really nice applications, like going for extra leftovers, and here you see that perfectly. So now it is free to stay in and just pursue. Theoretically, Starmie could start recover spamming and take advantage of the fact that it's doing less than 50% if Crunch is not doing 100%, but that's risky. So McMeghan, Bad Dummy's not even going to try. He's just going to go for the roll. And looks like those leftovers come in clutch because T-tar survives with 6%. And because the way Showdown shows us in the rounding, it's actually less than 6%. So those leftovers were really important. So now T-tar's in. We'll see what set it is, assuming something physical because defensive Starmie and Blissey, that's 2 natural cures, including a spinner that messes with Gengar. So, and then you have a Blissey to switch into the Will-O-Wisp, so you don't need the Pursuit, and you are going to want the physical attacking of physical T-tar to deal with things like Celebi and Jirachi, which otherwise might risk taking advantage of you with certain call mindsets. And you don't need the Pursuit for things like Moltres and Gengar. So it's likely going to be a physical tar, but I mean, McMeghan has an enormous advantage here. So in comes Milotic, which gets a little lucky with the Rock Slide miss. I mean, it's not going to be game-breaking. Even a Choice Band set would 2 a KO. Obviously, Dugtrio is always lurking in the back. But even just the forced recover would have been nice from a from a DD tar or a physical 4 attack tar. So a little lucky there. Now T-tar's going to run, and McMeghan's playing it safe. You could say, oh, well, double to T-tar. No need. He knows he has a huge advantage. And, there are players who would say, oh, well, you could have made the aggressive move there. He knows he doesn't need to. Part of, especially if you're being cautious, if you're really, really locked into this situation, it is imperative to recognize when you don't need to be aggressive. Because what's the worst thing in the world in this context? You have a free win. Let's just call whatever situation a free win, right? And imagine you have a free win if you just play it safe the whole time. And then you get bored or something, you decide to start predicting, and then you lose. That's bad enough when it happens on ladder. In an SPL Finals Tiebreak, So, obviously, we're not talking free win here, but we are talking enormous advantage. And yes, it would be incredibly stupid for Bad Dummy to stand and go for Rock Slide. But what if? I mean, McMeghan doesn't even know that it's not Choice Band. What if Bad Dummy says, you know what, I'm going to Choice Band Rock Slide 2 a KO this Milotic because it's at less than full, and I might flinch or crit it, who knows? And then McMeghan switches his Skarmory into the Choice Band Rock Slide and goes, whoa, I did not need to do that. At least if you surf with Milotic and you take the Choice Band Rock Slide, then you've damaged the T-tar. And so that big Choice Band T-tar threat is not, if it is a Choice Band T-tar obviously, then it's not going to be able to threaten you nearly as much because it's working with less than half its health the next time it comes in. So it can't even switch into Blissey comfortably next time. Then you'll go to your Claydol after, so it'll be okay. But overdoing it and going to Skarm there is not the way. So nice surf for McMeghan, taps Blissey for a little bit of damage, and Bad Dummy tries to regain some ground by double switching on the switch out from Milotic, trying to catch Skarmory, and goes to Fortress. As McMeghan, not even risking Skarm coming into Blissey, goes right to Blissey. He's like, I will slow this game down if I have to. Is it the most exciting way to play? No, but the excitement here is the tension that goes into every turn as each player tries to optimize their path towards winning. So, yeah. Now, Bad Dummy has a Fori which can spike itself, and the question is, does this also have Rapid Spin? That's what everyone's wondering as this game's going on. Did he bring Double Spin because he's that paranoid about spikes, which, look, spikes is really powerful, especially when it's coming from Skarm. Skarm tends to beat the spinners, so why not double up on spinners if you are trying to be... this is the most important game to be cautious in that you could have. So, yeah, this is a good place to bring double spin. It's a very interesting choice. So, if it doesn't... But obviously, when you use Fortress plus another spinner, because, for example, Fortress plus Claydol is very common. McMeghan is actually very fond of that strategy. Then part of the appeal is that when you outsource Rapid Spin somewhere else, then your Fortress becomes so much more flexible in its moveset, and then in the battle, because, I don't have to spin with Fori, I don't have to, try and spin into Gengar, I don't have to, because you'll get overwhelmed trying to spike and then keeping it healthy enough for spinning. That's another reason why Skarm is so effortless in spiking. It's like, I take a hit, and then I spike, and then I protect, and then I switch out. It's like, what do you mean keep it healthy for Rapid Spin later? That's too much pressure. So, when you have that second spinner, usually Claydol, but here, let's say Starmie, then you wind up not actually having that second spinner in the literal sense, because you just have the one Rapid Spin on the dedicated Rapid Spinner. This is very common in GSC. Players of that metagame will be familiar with the concept. So, you could have the second Rapid Spin, but you don't have to, especially because Fortress has actually a deceptively large move pool. And when you can start tapping into, Hidden Power, Earthquake, Explosion, Counter, even Zap Cannon, crazy as it sounds, it's basically a 50% accurate T-Wave. So, yeah, and you often only just have to land it once. It can be game-breaking, like if a Gengar switches in. That's ruinous. So it can be worth it. I'm not saying it's likely in this in a game with this kind of stakes, but it's possible. More likely is going to be like Hidden Power Fire, because if you don't have a Ghost type, baddummy could have a Gengar last, but if he doesn't, then Fori having HP Fire allows him to keep spikes up against opposing Fortress. Or he could have HP Bug to pressure Claydol, or Claydol and Starmie, and Celebi, because passive teams like this, they're really scared of Calm Mind passing Celebi a lot of the time. Now, there could be a Dug Trio last, but you see the idea. Whether it's Hidden Power or Earthquake for Magneton and Metagross, turning Fori into a decent makeshift Metagross check, then, or even helping out against T-Tar. You can never have enough help against T-Tar. So you want Earthquake if you can help it. You want Explosion if you can help it. Like, passive team like this tends to be scared of things like Suicune. Look at that. Fori just blew it up. Fori just was used to counter Suicune. It works deceptively well. So, if you can, outsource Rapid Spin elsewhere, it is often preferable to do so. But we don't know that yet. We also don't know if McMeghan's Blissey has a flamethrower and a flamethrower, yeah. We also don't know if Blissey is like Sigourney Weaver in Aliens, but you don't really want to risk it. This is another challenge of using Fortress. You never know when a lot of Pokemon use fire coverage. Now, if it's HP Fire from like Metagross or something, you can survive that. But generally, once the higher base power Fire Blasts and Flamethrowers, like Skarmory can take a Fire Blast from Salamence. Fori can't even take a Flamethrower. So, you don't really want to risk it, because you're already... Okay, I understand wanting to risk it, because you're behind, and you can't play scared of every possibility, and Flamethrower Blissey is very, very low usage. So I would get it, but it's still a very, very difficult button to click. So, yeah, that's basically what's going on here. Yeah, so does he risk it? Does he not? He does not. He goes to Swampert and plays it safe. So now he knows... I mean, the thing is that with Fori, you never know. It's this, unknowable mystery almost, impenetrable, in that McMeghan could have Flamethrower. This used to be a very common tactic among great players a long time ago, where they would have a move, but they would act like they didn't for a really long time, and then they would throw that move on you. You would think, okay, no way they no way they have it if they haven't used it by like the 5th time around. Then that 6th time around they unleash it, and you're like, how did they have that kind of restraint? So, it's possible he's like, you know what? I'm not going to fall for that. I mean, you could say he doesn't need to reveal it or keep it hidden, because just letting baddummy know that the Blissey has Flamethrower means that he can threaten it every time. Like, he'll get a spike up later with Skarmory, and then Blissey will chase the Fori out on double switches. So he can let him know that. or, you know, he can keep it hidden. This is, McMeghan's got flexibility here, and with Fori, this is that awful feeling where you're always on the back foot, you know, against having to spin, having to fear fire coverage. It can be very ugly. The upsides are potentially amazing, but again, the downsides are very, very ugly, which is why Skarmory is generally preferred. So, yeah, he's got to, so there's no way of knowing for sure, but Skarmory is going to get that spike up now, and here comes the Fortress. Now, here's what really wowed everyone. That Drill Peck does a heck of a lot. You don't think it does a lot because 22%, but considering Skarm is not a powerful Pokemon at all, and Fori is very physically bulky, 22% is kind of a ton. And you're thinking, wait, attack investment? What's going on there? And indeed, there is an old Skarm set that hasn't been seen for some time. It's literally called, I'm not making this up, YOLO Skarm. Which, you know, you only live once, therefore why not use max attack and max speed Skarm with Drill Peck and HP Ground. And yes, that is used to KO Magneton. So, this is McMeghan's way of using Skarm and not fearing some, again, caution. Not caution in the passive sense, but caution in the sense of I'm going to use Skarmory and I'm going to be aware of the common counterplay for Skarmory. So, yeah, with that in mind, then he is free to use it without fearing Magneton plus Rapid Spinner Cheese. And he is also able to taunt, which is a great move to have on Skarm. Slow down other Skarms, you know, prevent Blissey from healing, things like that. And of course, the big Drill Pecks are great for doing exactly this, muscling through Fortress that might try to sit on it. And you especially feel that sting when, after they exchange another layer of spikes, then it crits. And that's a big, big, big crit, doing a whopping 45%. Now, the Fori does reveal Rapid Spin, so Bad Dummy's not completely hapless into these layers of spikes McMeghan is putting up, but after that crit, now the Fori is basically not out of commission, but it's approaching dangerously close to out of commission, because remember, McMeghan's also going to have a Claydol in the back. The Fori needs to stay healthy, not just to spin, but to get the spikes up against the Claydol, and it looks like it's going to get chased out here. Now he's going to stay in because he wants to at least work with a layer of spikes, but it's, he's going to get the spin off again, but he, as McMeghan, you know, relayed the spike on Bad Dummy, getting the third layer of spikes. So, like, look, before the Claydol comes in and spikes up, at least Bad Dummy is working with a full field of hazards. You know, T-Tar is down, Milotic's going to get chunked a lot, Blissey is not doing well either, then Dugtrio, you know, doesn't like it either, and Claydol is immune and threatens to spin, so that's the problem. And it depends on the last as well. So if you don't manage to deal with the spikes of Skarmory's, at least you will have a field of full spikes, at least for the time being. But now Fori's got to get out of there, and in comes Gengar on the fourth spike. Now, Gengar is a saving grace here. Gengar protects the spikes from Claydol. It's not a guaranteed protection from Claydol, because obviously it is weak to Psychic, but it can work into Claydol very, very nicely. Or it gives you an option, as opposed to just Claydol clicks Rapid Spin, there's literally nothing you can do about it. This is the best Pokemon I have. It's also a great Spikes abuser, because look, 3 layers of Spikes plus Will-O-Wisp, and you know what McMeghan has that normally threatens Gengar is Pursuit T-Tar. Pursuit T-Tar's gone. It's out of the question. So, Blissey, with 3 layers of Spikes down, switching into Will-O-Wisp, yeah, so, the Fortress is not looking so good. It's, you know, on death's door practically, but Gengar, this is a threat. So, it's got the freest Will-O-Wisp in the world here. Blissey comes in, eats the Wisp, it connects, and what's really scary here is the possibility of Taunt. Now, as Bad Dummy, this Gengar's health is your most precious commodity right now. You don't want to take an Ice Beam, on your Taunt and then be more vulnerable to Claydol's Psychic, more vulnerable than you already are. Even if it's especially defensive Gengar, you know, you really rely on being at full health a lot when using Gar. But on the other hand, you really don't want this Blissey to just soft boil up, and then you have to come back in and cycle through this again. You got to make some progress. So yeah, maybe you have to take that hit, and maybe you're gonna have to play something, make some crazy plays when Claydol comes back. But it's you got to take some risks at some point. So he does taunt, and the Blissey soft-boiled, and that is enormous. Blissey's now at half health, and it's not healing, and it's going to be forced out. This is a potential, game over moment. Obviously, with McMeghan, you want to Ice Beam, but you don't want to Ice Beam as Bad Dummy switches to T-Tar, because, yes, then you sacrifice T-Tar, your Revenge Kill with Dugtrio, but then Gengar comes in again. You really want Blissey healthy. And it looks at this point, no matter what, though, you're not really going to have Blissey healthy once you get through this interaction with Gengar, unless you Soft Boil on a switch, which is, Bad Dummy wants to avoid at all costs. So it makes sense. I mean, to call it a right move is stretching it a little, in my opinion. But you would, with Ice Beam, you don't risk giving Bad Dummy the best case scenario. And suddenly, the tides are really turning here. Yes, Claydol is still an effective anti-Gengar answer-ish, but it's tough here. Obviously, Blissey can still heal, but, from half health with 3 layers of spikes, it's going to get rough. So, there is an argument to be made for Ice Beam, especially because it also puts some pressure on T-Tar with the layer of spikes, so you're not just doing nothing. And if Bad Dummy goes to Blissey of his own, plays it safe, then you get to heal up, but that's very unlikely. Or maybe McMeghan just didn't expect Taunt, because a lot of players go without Taunt on their Will-O-Wisp Gengars. They like Explosion. But I'm a big fan of Taunt personally, specifically for what you see it do here, and for all its other myriad applications. So it's a tough move to make. You could make the argument that Claydol was a good pivot there, because you're either getting taunted or T-Tar switching in. And Claydol has a good one-on-one matchup against both and isn't affected by spikes. So, and you minimize, you would save 12.5% on Blissey at least. There's also the possibility that the Blissey doesn't even have an ice move, or it doesn't have Ice Beam, or a move to hit Gengar, which would be a Flamethrower, because it's paired with Pursuit T-Tar. And this has become more and more popular in recent times, that if you have Pursuit Tar theoretically trapping Gengar, why do you need the move on Blissey to hit it? And this way, if you can fit that 4th move on Blissey that isn't Ice Beam, if you have Salamence handled, which you definitely do with, Milotic, and just the fact that Blissey with something like T-Wave is already a great Mence answer, but, Milotic, Skarm, Claydol, you're doing fine against Mence. It's very possible that it was dropped, and that makes the taunt from Bad Dummy even an even better move, recognizing, look, that thing might not be able to touch me. So, but it does, in fact, have Ice Beam, and T-Tar switches in, takes quite a chunk, actually. It reveals itself to be leftover, so no choice band there. But now Blissey, even below half health with max layers, this is not a good situation. So in comes T-Tar, gets sacrificed. Now, I think Bad Dummy messed up a little there by not by not switching. I don't know. It's a tough situation. I think he should have gone to Swampert or Gengar. I realize it's a risky move, but as you see there, I mean, even if the T-Tar is sub, it can't protect itself from Dugtrio because, as you saw, the T-Tar sacrificed the spikes and the turn ends. That's how advanced mechanics work. So it's a very aggressive move, but I think that when you just let T-Tar go like this, it's a potentially valuable piece. And yes, this is part of why Dugtrio is actually kind of subject of controversy in advance right now. But I think the T-Tar was let go for too little. Because, again, later on, you think, oh, well, Blissey is basically dead. And it's not so good into Milo, it's not so good into Skarm, it's not so great into Claydol. But just giving it up for free like this, basically, where the T-Tars are traded, I think is kind of a waste. I don't think McMeghan was ever going to risk just letting Blissey go. He's going to try, because Blissey just needs one soft build and it's fine. I mean, look, at such low health, it's a tough task. It's a tough call to make. But just letting the Blissey go, I think it was less likely, if only for the reason that Blissey might have a tough time soft-boiling in these conditions, yes. But number one, Claydol is going to try and spin. And that makes it infinitely easier for Blissey to get that soft-boil off. Number two, Blissey has the chance to soft-boiled up. Even if you rapid spin, that T-Tar at 12% is basically useless. You know, it can't trap a Gengar anymore. I know it's got Protect and everything, but it's way too weak. It's not going... The T-Tar is always going to be less useful than the Blissey, so you sack the T-Tar, you might be able to salvage the Blissey. The T-Tar will never be useful. And I think Bad Dummy was a little too conservative in saying, you know, I don't really need my T-Tar. I mean, if that Blissey stays in... this is why I think Swampert was a fine move, because if the... Blissey does stay in, then you haven't really lost anything. I understand Gengar being really, really aggressive in that you know, oh, well, what if it stays in? And if it's, honestly, if the Blissey stayed in, it's going for Seismic Toss, not for Ice Beam, so you wouldn't take damage. But then you risk, like, oh, do I taunt it again? Do I make sure the Blissey goes down? But it's not Ice Beaming, so I think Gengar was fine there. And again, I don't think the Blissey was being sacrificed. But... the Blissey was also, even if you do go to Swampert, I think it's not the end of the world, because Blissey has been pressured. Yeah, it gets a couple Soft Wheels off, but you'll be able to get T-Tar in more freely, and then the Blissey's going to definitely... If the Blissey Soft Wheels up, then you will definitely see the T-Tar sacked. And why is the T-Tar sacked as opposed to Claydol not coming in directly? Well, Claydol risks HP Bug, and if Claydol risks HP Bug on the switch, then it is much worse at dealing with Gengar. So, I don't know, I think T-Tar was sacrificed way too easily. It's a massive threat, and so now it just winds up doing nothing. So I think this T-Tar was... Now, the upside to sacrificing T-Tar is, look what's about to happen. Gengar comes in with another free Wisp. With spikes up, and Claydol switches into it, because either Dugtrio is ruined, or Milotic is messed up, or Skarmory is messed up, Blissey is KO'd. Either way, this Wisp is finding a nice target. So Claydol getting Wisp is not good, but it is still the best option for McMeghan, which obviously plays into Bad Dummy's hands. So now, that crit on Fori is really stinging, as healthier Fortress would be more able to, you know, switch, pivot in, even with the layer of spikes, and see, you know, potentially, you know, get some burn damage, threaten HP Bug, gets a rapid spin off, whatever. You wouldn't have to protect the spikes at all costs. But Gengar Giga Drains, and there's a crit. And the Psychic there does not... Well, it would 2 KO with Sand, but after a second Giga Drain, it would not. So, there's a crit in return on the... So both spinners get crit here. But now, Claydol, after that... Which, make no mistake, that was a huge crit, because now it's in Giga Drain range. And now McMeghan has no choice but to go to Skarmory on the Giga Drain and pray for a Will-O-Wisp miss and to smack it with a with a max attack Drill Peck. Not super effective, a max attack Drill Peck, which would absolutely KO Gengar from that health if Wisp missed. So this is obviously, you know, a major desperation move, and Bad Dummy, in a move that he'll probably, you know, come to think about, should I have risked it forever? You know I would. Is not going to risk it, because, you know, you wouldn't miss that Wisp and the game is over, basically. Or not basically, or no, the game is probably over almost surely. But, I mean, if you land it, the game is also over, and it is 75-25, and there is such a thing as being too afraid of taking a risk. And the reason why a lot of people, including myself at the time, I'm not 100% sure on if this was the right move or not, but I do think that it was... I think it was probably worth it, because I don't think the advantage was... I don't know, I feel like letting the Skarm get away opened up too many avenues for a comeback for McMeghan. But then again, maybe I'm saying this not entirely fairly, because even though this Blissey... Well, okay, I do take one thing back, though. Blissey was not the move into that Drill Peck, because as you see, that Drill Peck does 1,000,000 damage. And now Bad Dummy's own Blissey is in the danger zone. So that was a failure of calculation from Fori. It's like, wow, it did that much to Fori on a crit. Like, well, how much is it going to do to Blissey? So that was overlooked. That was rushed. And now the Blissey has to run away, because another Drill Peck threatens to KO it. It might even get taunted. And McMeghan double switches to his Blissey on the Soft Wheel. Like, so I guess he didn't have to run from it. He was just risking getting KO'd there or taunted. Either way, that was a very, very foolish mistake. And honestly, for that reason alone, I feel like the Wisp should have been gone for. Like, Swampert isn't a good pivot into the Skarmory. You can't go to Fori, it's going to get destroyed. And Blissey risks getting destroyed too, so it's not so much I don't want to risk my Gengar, as in I don't have anything to switch into this Drill Peck. And Max Attack Skarmory Drill Peck posing such a threat is not something anyone expected going into this game. But Blissey does narrowly escape death because McMeghan chooses not to go for the KO, but instead uses this opportunity to heal the Blissey up. And this is where that whole T-Tar getting sacrificed thing feels especially wasteful, as McMeghan does get hit by Sandstorm and gets leftovers first, so either that's a speed tie or he has some speed investment on his Blissey, and he gets the Salt Wheel off first, and Bad Dummy recognizes my Blissey's probably slower because he doesn't even try and go for the speed tie KO, he just throws up a Wish. Now, Wish is going to be, it is a good tool to have, in that, the rejuvenation for teammates can give him a little more freedom, in which he can give him a little more freedom to take damage. Suddenly, oh, well, Gengar took an Ice Beam from Blissey, but I can Wish to the Gengar. So there's more freedom there. So it's a great choice, but it's not going to do much here because Fortress is, risking getting KO'd on the switch-in from Seismic Toss. And McMeghan now reveals Thunderbolt on the Bliss, which demonstrates that it is almost surely a Calm Mind Blissey last. So Soft Whirl, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, Calm Mind. It could be Seismic Toss. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Bolt Beam, Seismic Toss, Blissey. It's a very good set. But Calm Mind is generally the most common option, especially because, paired with Spikes and Dugtrio and Claydol's Rapid Spin support, Blissey turns into a great Calm Mind sweeper. So it just winds up giving a win condition, a way to force the win late game on a team that is otherwise almost exclusively dealing in passive damage. So Swampert is gonna, take a Wish, which it didn't really need, but so it kind of makes me wonder if that Wish was really, if it really had to be revealed. But I understand that, he probably expected a Seismic Toss, so okay, it's not gonna make that much of a difference. Swampert reveals Roar, so okay, that's huge, because it means that Swampert's not just gonna stay. I was expecting at the time, it's gonna Toxic, it's gonna have a Refresh, so it can beat Blissey one-on-one. That's big. It can force in Milotic with Surf. Milotic forces Blissey back in, so a Wish goes up, and then you can maybe Wish back to Fori. But Roar takes things in a different direction. Because if you Roar in Dugtrio, you can potentially, you bring it down to 50%. If you get your Roars right, then you can potentially take the Dugtrio out without, you can potentially take the Dugtrio out, right? But instead, Claydol gets dragged in. And this is very, very good as well, because it's basically on death's door, and you can take a Psychic with Gengar. Well, no, you can't really take the Psychic with Gengar, plus Sand, plus it can still live, and everyone at this point is going, does that thing have rest? Because when Claydol is paired with Dugtrio, it loses the need for Earthquake. Oh, it doesn't lose the need for Earthquake, it lessens the need for Earthquake. Because Doug plus Milotic is going to, and Spikes, obviously, they are collectively going to help out against things like Jirachi and Metagross and T-Char that you would need Earthquake for. And this way, you can fit in something like Rest or Explosion. Basically, you make Claydol more, you don't really find Earthquake redundant, but you go, man, I really wish I could fit another move on Claydol. Well, I don't really need Earthquake. And that's how you wind up with Earthquakeless Claydol, and that's how Rest enters the equation. So everyone's wondering what's going on here, and Bad Dummy rests because, you know what? If nothing else, then the Claydol will, if it Psychics my Gengar on the switch, at least the Claydol will go down and I'll have permanent Spikes. And, or he can stay in and try and Surf on the Psychic, but, the Protect there was the perfect move, because no matter what, it just guarantees Claydol takes more burn damage, and that's good. But now, the Claydol rests. So, McMeghan is still in it because the Claydol is healthy, but it's staring down a Surf-spamming Swampert, with Roar, and so Bad Dummy's still in a very good position because that Blissey is not going to have Heal Bell or Aromatherapy for the more pedantic audience members. And it's got 2 turns of sleep. So that's I mean, especially defensive, yes, but it's not going to take Swampert stab serves kindly. So it's got to burn a turn to sleep because McMeghan cannot afford to switch around. Milotic switches in, okay, it's going to get roared. A refresh is very likely on that Swampert. You can't scare it with Toxic. It switches in, recovers, gets roared again, Claydol comes back in. You got to burn that turn to sleep at some point. So, okay, turn burned. Bad Dummy goes for roar, and there's a collective groan from Smogtors asking the question, why? This was a case of being ahead and trying to go too far ahead. If you roar the Milotic on the switch or the Blissey on the switch, great. It doesn't win the game. It puts you further ahead. It puts more pressure on them. But these Pokemon are healing up anyway, even if they take 2 rounds of spikes for a total of 50%, because your Blissey and your Swampert are giving them so much opportunity. So it's a lot likelier that you just wind up roaring them back in later. Oh, well, thanks for the recover. Nothing wrong with that, obviously. They're not putting huge pressure on you. But you are... what's worse is that the one thing you cannot do at this point, you absolutely cannot do this, you cannot give Claydol free turns to burn off sleep. You can't do it. That is the one thing keeping McMeghan in this game. Or keeping McMeghan in a decent position, rather, to be more accurate. And he just gave him a sleep turn for free in exchange for, okay, Roared and Dugtrio, great. Okay, that's really not bad, though, because if you get rid of Dugtrio, a lot of stuff opens up. Okay, but Dugtrio doesn't want to stay in either, right? So, again, you gotta surf. And Bad Dummy roars again, and this is where everyone was groaning, myself included, because he had 2 ground types he was being offered, a free shot at, and he didn't take it on either one, and he let them both escape. Claydol took no damage. Dugtrio escaped with just 25%. So, and now Claydol gets roared back in, of course. So, now it takes a surf, which is, as you see, 3 KOing it. But now it's going to wake up. It's going to threaten Rapid Spin. And Bad Dummy is going to go to Blissey. And there goes the spin, and there goes the 3 layers of spikes. Meanwhile, Fortress is unable to switch into anything, as we established earlier. And that's it. There's no coming back from that. You can try, but it's as Milotic comes in, unencumbered by spikes. Gengar comes in, takes a big surf, heals a little from Wish. But this is not a matchup Gengar comes close to winning, as it's forced to Giga Drain the Milotic for pathetic damage. And taking big pressure from Surf. You can threaten Explosion, you can threaten Destiny Bond, it's still not going to be enough. McMeghan is, in fact, too far ahead. And the fact that he gave the Claydol... I mean, the Dugtrio thing doesn't matter as much as giving the Claydol a free shot. Basically, having a clean 3-hit KO on Claydol and avoiding it and giving it the Rapid Spin was... Yeah, so now Blissey's calm minding, and Bad Dummy has no pressure to speak of in return because Fortress is out of commission. And Swampert can roar it. McMeghan goes for Thunderbolt to not let Fori in. Doesn't matter if Swampert comes in because he's recognizing what's important. So Swampert takes a big +2 Ice Beam. Doesn't matter. Scarm comes in. It's going to spike more. Now Fortress is really toast. I mean, Surf's doing a lot of damage because max attack, max speed Scarm means no bulk. Second layer of spikes, generally not a very useful thing, but here it actually really, really nails the coffin in on Fortress. And, it's not like Scarm's health is super important at this point. So, Miss Toxic, at this point, it's really just McMeghan's game to lose after it was so openly given to him. And now Gengar comes in, on a wish. So Gengar is getting wished up, but right now, if we take a look at the battle chat, we see one of the most frustrating things in Pokemon, which is when a player starts using their timer and thinking what move to make, like in detail, thinking ahead, thinking thoroughly, after the game has already been thrown away. This is, as you see, McMeghan's timer is, even when he's in a good position, it's going just fine, but there's not nearly enough timer being expended before the game is basically tossed. And then once the game is tossed, we see the biggest use of timer yet from Bad Dummy. So the lesson to take away is, don't wait until the game has been thrown away to start thinking about what's going on. If everything's going fine, then sure, but if it's a close game and everything, every detail, every turn matters, then you might not want to rush through that. When the timer, a lot of people don't realize the timer is 5 entire minutes. That is a lot of time. So now Gengar switches out of the calm-minded Blissey. It stands no chance of beating. Blissey gets frozen, but natural cure. Swampert's going to roar it out again. At least McMeghan's Blissey is own. McMeghan's Blissey is burned because Gengar burned it on the Calm Mind, but it's really a formality at this point. There's nothing Bad Dummy can do because he is exerting no pressure because he has a team that is dedicated to spiking and spinning, and he has not managed to keep the spikes off, and he has not managed to keep his own spikes up. The Fortress, the crit was on the unfortunate side, for sure. But if we go back to the early part of the game, then you would say, remember when Starmie was dragged in as McMeghan sacrifices Dugtrio there to guarantee Blissey can't heal up safely, and now Skarmory's going to come in and finish it off safely, guaranteeing that it is out of commission with spikes. So great move there. Dugtrio not needed anymore. So remember early on when we were talking about Starmie is coming in too early and being tasked with doing too much? I'm wondering where the Fortress was. When you have the Fortress stacking spikes, the Fortress also spins. You stack spikes with Fortress early, and you spin Skarm's spikes with that, and then when Starmie does come in, you've got your own pressure. Pursuit T-Tar is not avoiding that 2-hit KO safely if it's taking spikes damage when coming in. So it was too much relied on Starmie too early, so lots of little things adding up. You know, a lot of the time, something that's going to bite you in the late game, it was set up early game, and here we see that. So that Wisp does eventually miss Skarmory. It takes a massive Drill Peck, but at this point it's too late. Fori and Milotic has won this game a long time ago. Milo and that. So we see the Claydol explode, and that is what is... Oh, sorry, I skipped so far. Skip back to the beginning instead of clicking previous turn. My apologies. So I don't remember which turn we were on, so I wasn't counting the turn itself. But yeah, that is exactly what I'm talking about. That by dropping Earthquake, you get to run a Rest and Explosion Claydol. So in long games, you rest. In faster games, you explode. Or sometimes you can do both, as you saw in this game. So that's exactly what the support from Skarm and Doug does. So beautifully built by McMeghan and then executed in the battle. And now Milotic is going to come in, and that is the game. So thank you for watching. I hope this analysis was enjoyable for you. And yeah, see you in the next one.